Something that baffles me is that people treat time management techniques like a one-stop shop instead of a browsing the shelves kind of solution. They expect one theory to help them in every single case of their lives instead of seeing it as a place where they can shop little bits that fit to a specific aspect of their life. So I genuinely think it's not a one-size-fits-all, but kind of a buffet where you can pick your own style. Hi, welcome in or welcome back. My name is Ro. I'm a project manager, content creator, and healthy productivity fanatic. Over the past 8 years, I've been studying time management techniques and project management from a lot of different perspectives. In this video, I'd like to set apart the different bits from different time management techniques that really stood out to me over the years, and I'll kind of give you a little bit of context to which situations in your life they would be effective, but also to which situations they would really not be effective, to kind of give you that buffet style menu picking, but then in a video, so it is just presented to you as one single technique, so you can still treat it like a one-stop shop. I'm just gonna dive straight into the content, but if you have any questions at the end of the video because I haven't answered the thing that you were wondering about, feel free to hop in the comments and let me know, because I would be more than happy to help you out. As you might know, a very famous one is the 2-minute rule from Getting Things Done from David Allen. And I think the 2-minute rule is actually a really good time management tip. It can help you a lot. However, there's also situations where the 2-minute rule can definitely kind of get in your way. The 2-minute rule basically means that whenever something can be done under 2 minutes, you don't put it on your to-do list and you do it right away. This is extremely helpful when you're cleaning out your mailbox, and instead of putting an email that you can answer with one sentence on your to-do list, you just answer it right away. So very helpful when you're in a task and you're already within kind of like the container of cleaning out your mailbox and there's something in your mailbox that only takes you 2 minutes. When is this not helpful? When you're trying to focus on a specific task and every single thing that comes up to your mind and you're like, oh, that's just a 2-minute task, and you start doing it right away, because it takes you out of the focus and it actually causes that you probably don't finish that task that you were trying to focus on. And then even if it's shorter than 2 minutes, just put it on your to-do list to keep your focus and kind of keep the distractions out of the way. So helpful when it fits within the container of the task that you're already doing, but absolutely not helpful when you're trying to focus on something and it's just causing you a distraction. Something else that you might have heard of is time blocking. Time blocking basically means that you block time to do certain things in your life and you kind of put it in your calendar as literally a physical time block in your calendar. You can do this in a digital or in a physical calendar, and it blocks the time to work on a specific task. And it kind of treats your time like a budget, and your calendar is your budgeting book where you can spend your time in advance. Instead of spending it real time, you budget your time. This is super helpful if you have multiple life areas that require your attention, and you can kind of block off the time to give that attention to the different areas in your life. A practical example from my life is I have a daytime job, I have a relationship, I have friends, I have a content creation business, and I have my hobbies. So for all of these things, I make sure to block time in my week so I can make sure that I budget my time correctly across all of these life areas. When it's not helpful to time block is if you start scheduling every single task in your calendar, because then time blocking kind of becomes a thing that costs more time that you gain from it. So use time blocking more as like a general budget or like a general estimation of your time rather than an actual to-do list. If you want to know more in depth about this, I do have a whole video on how to time block correctly, so feel free to check it out. I'll make sure to link it up in the card and in the description box down below if that is something that you want to know more about. Another method that you might have heard of is the Pomodoro focus method. This is a personal favorite of mine, but there's also definitely cases where this does not work. So the Pomodoro focus, for those of you who've never heard of it, Pomodoro is the Italian word for tomato, and the reason that this method is called like this is because the person that invented it actually used a tomato-shaped cooking clock for it and then just proceeded to call it Pomodoro technique. But the idea is that you put a timer for a focus period for yourself. The traditional Pomodoro is 25 minutes, 5 minutes of break, but I prefer to do 50 minutes of focus, 10 minutes of break. But the idea is that you set yourself a timer for a set amount of focus and then a timer for a set amount of break, and you keep that rhythm up for multiple iterations. So you can do like 4 or 5 sessions or 4 or 5 pomos, so to say, and then you do 5 times 50 minutes of focus with 10 minutes break in between. And it is proven that it actually works really well to focus on a singular task during that focus time and then give your brain a break and then kind of either continue with the same task or start a brand new task. This is extremely helpful when you are able to make your own schedule. When you have, for instance, study work or university work to catch up on, when you have to write a project plan, when you have to do some reading, all of the things that are basically not dependent on someone else planning your time, but you having to be disciplined enough to finish your own tasks. This method is absolutely not helpful when you have zero control over your own time, because then you're going to be scheduling Pomodoros, missing your breaks. You're going to have to kind of adjust the Pomodoros or the focus time based off of maybe meetings or things that you're dependent on other people for. So the Pomodoro focus is really nice if you can manage your own time. Definitely not helpful if you're not in control of your own time. Another one that you might have heard at one point is Parkinson's Law, and it basically means that the time that you allocate for a task is the time that the task will take. So if you give yourself 2 hours to study a chapter, it will happen in 2 hours. However, if you only give yourself 1 hour, it might actually happen in 1 hour, probably will happen in 1 hour. So the thing is, you can influence how much time you spend on something by allocating a certain set amount of time for it. Again, this is helpful when you can decide your own schedule. If you're not really in control of your own schedule, then this is probably not going to help. And also, it is actually one that works really well for people that struggle with self-discipline and struggle to get tasks done. But if you're a person who is really disciplined, this will probably burn you out in the long time. If you continuously set really ambitious deadlines for yourself, then this will actually cause more frustration because you're continuously not meeting your deadline because you're too ambitious. So this kind of, to decide whether this tip is helpful for you, it requires a little bit of reflection of what type of person you are. If you are a person who struggles with self-discipline and always takes really long to complete tasks, then maybe giving yourself a little less time and giving yourself a more tighter deadline might actually help you. However, if you're a person who already tends to be quite ambitious with their planning and is already struggling to meet their own deadlines, then maybe this one might not be the best for you because it can probably cause more of a burnout feeling than it's actually going to help you finish tasks. Another time management tip that could be very useful is prioritizing tasks. There's different methods for it. One that is very famous is the Eisenhower matrix, but you can also use something like a task of the day or like a highlight of the day. So there's different ways of prioritizing your tasks, but in the end, it all comes down to setting a task that you have to begin with and then kind of working your way down the list. This is, again, super helpful when there's no external factors deciding your work, when you have a big workload on your plate and you can decide which is the thing that is most important. However, if there is a lot of external factors involved and if a lot of other people put pressure and deadlines on you, then you cannot always prioritize your own work, and it's kind of like some things just come with a priority. And then trying to prioritize it yourself might be a challenge because you feel very overwhelmed in terms of all of the things on your list have a high priority because in all cases someone else is dependent on it. So this could be very useful when you're, for instance, a small business owner or when you're working on your own or when you have a lot of control over your time. But when someone else prioritizes your time, you're probably not going to benefit the most from this. It could still help you in prioritizing which task to start with. However, it's probably less effective than maybe some other time management tips to actually help you work through that task list. Something that you might have heard about as well is using an inbox for incoming tasks. So basically having one singular place where you write everything down that is incoming of something that you need to pick up at one point. This is incredibly helpful if you have a bunch of different life areas that all kind of require your attention throughout the day and you don't always necessarily have the time to pick up something up immediately. This, for instance, for me could be that someone emails me while I'm working on my content, but I know that I have to remember to actually answer that email. I can put it in my inbox and then every so often you sit down, you clean out your inbox to kind of allocate time to it. You clean out your inbox to place it in different places in your to-do list or your productivity system. And this is very helpful if you're a person who has a lot of incoming tasks throughout their day. This is not very helpful if you're a person who tends to have a million ideas and just kind of dump them in an inbox and not have a system to organize it. So the inbox is useful if you have a rhythm or a system to organize your tasks. But if you're a person who always feels like they're overwhelmed with all the ideas that they have and they struggle to prioritize which tasks they should pick up, probably making a really big bucket of tasks where you're just going to dump anything that pops into your brain is going to cause more overwhelm. And then it might be better to just immediately write a task down in the right place rather than placing it in a big bucket of inbox tasks. Humans are actually notoriously bad at scheduling time for themselves. We always overestimate ourselves or underestimate ourselves. And this is really, really tough when it comes to time management and allocating time for yourself to do a certain thing, because people tend to always schedule too much or too little time for themselves. If you're a person who tends to put very tight deadlines and you struggle to get things done on time, something that might help you is scheduling buffer time. Basically, always think about how much time you think you'll need for a task and add at least 10 to 15% to that in terms of how much time you actually schedule for it. So if you're thinking, I might need like an hour to finish this task, give yourself an hour 15, maybe 1.5 hours even to actually do it. You're probably more on track with the 1.5 hours than you were with the hour. This is not helpful, however, if you're a person who already struggles to meet their deadlines. Kind of this is the opposite of the Parkinson's law. So where the Parkinson's law kind of forces you to schedule less time for yourself and forces you to make your task smaller and more narrow and schedule less time so that they take up less space in your calendar. This one is kind of the opposite of scheduling buffer time, giving yourself more time to do something. So again, it requires a little bit of reflection towards yourself of what kind of person you are to see which one might be most helpful for you. Something that I don't think is an official term, but I call it positive sandwiching, is when you have two tasks that you think are really fun and one task in the middle that you think is really hard to do or you're struggling with, you sandwich the negative tasks in between the two positives, and then you can actually make it easier for yourself to get through the hard tasks by kind of tricking your brain into the quick release of dopamine, which is a feel-good hormone that we all need, but I know that it helps a lot in productivity when people feel the dopamine. So kind of allowing yourself to start with something that energizes you, that get that dopamine flowing, then move into the task that you struggle with, but also have a task on the other end of that task to motivate you again to continue with your day, or maybe motivate you to get through the task that you're struggling with, so that on the last part, you're still again doing something that gives you dopamine and makes you feel good after. This works really well when you're studying or when you're working for yourself and there is like a big task that you need to get through, kind of allowing yourself to do something fun at the beginning or something fun at the end. This could even be rewarding yourself with an episode of your favorite show, all of those things, like just sandwich something that you struggle with in between two positives. However, this is super not helpful when you're in a corporate environment. I've noticed this as a project manager. I cannot reward myself always for doing a task that I don't really like. I cannot just simply watch an episode of my favorite show when I'm on paid time. So finding the positives in my work and kind of still sandwiching the negatives in between the positive tasks is still something that I can do. It's just that kind of the philosophy of giving yourself a little treat when you finish the task might not be as easy if you're in a corporate environment, especially if you're in a very strict corporate environment, because I already experienced it and I work in quite an open and playful company culture. Whereas I know a lot of people, when you actually work in a very, very corporate, then you might not be able to do this and it might not be the most helpful. And then we have make it fun. And I think this sounds so simple, but yet it can be so powerful. And something that already made a huge difference for me is, instead of calling my tasks, I'm calling them little quests. And whenever I'm doing something that is not like my main quest of the day, something that is not the most important of the day, I'm side questing. And I'm allowed to side quest. It's fine. I learned from side quests as well. Eventually, they still help me with the total story progression. And I know that this is a very nerdy gamer thing to say, to call it quests and side quests, and you can pick whatever you would like to call it to make it a little bit more fun, but also allow yourself to have fun with your time management and your to-do list. Give your calendar funky colors. Give your to-do list like a little sound when you take it off. Doesn't matter, but as long as you help yourself get that little release of dopamine when you're actually working on your things, because in the end, if something's not fun, it's going to be inherently more difficult to do it. This doesn't really work that well, again, when you're in a very corporate environment, but it also doesn't really work if you have a lot of time pressure, because even though having fun is extremely important when there is a lot of pressure, because it's usually the thing that keeps people motivated and keeps people going, it can also be the thing that takes away time, which is precious time. The most important thing when there is like a tight deadline or you need to make something happen is maybe not make it fun, but here's a very important bonus tip for this video: take rest. Allow yourself, whenever you're under pressure, to also rest. And that can be rest in terms of positive sandwiching because you're doing something that you enjoy. That can be rest in making it fun by giving your brain something that entertains it, or by actually stepping away from the task that you're doing and making sure that you feed yourself, that you drink something, that you take a walk outside. Because honestly, rest can be the biggest time management hack that I've ever heard. And I know it sounds super counterproductive to do something as taking rest, which is not actively working on your task, but sometimes fighting your own brain is not worth it. It's not giving you more than it's gaining you. So honestly, taking rest and just making sure that you're enjoying the thing that you're doing, those would be my biggest time management tips that come from no specific theory, but are helpful always. There's no situation where rest is not a good tool. And a last one that I just thought of while I was making this video, so you're getting 2 bonus tips, so you better like this video because you're getting a lot of value out of this. I'm just sure of it. If you make an appointment with yourself, treat it like an appointment with another person. If you are working on something and you have agreed with yourself that you would be studying at 1, start studying at 1. If you agreed with someone else to meet up at 1, you would probably stop your episode. You would probably get out of bed. You would probably do things because you have agreed with someone else and someone else is holding you accountable. And as soon as you can put that on yourself and hold yourself accountable and treat appointments with yourself like appointments with others, it's going to, 1, make a huge difference in how much more productive you are, but it's also going to make a huge difference in how much rest you can take. So if you agreed with yourself that tonight you're not going to study and you're going to take rest, also treat that as an appointment with yourself and agree that if someone calls you and asks you, do you want to go out? Do you want to go study in the library some more? Do you want to do something fun? Your boss is calling. Can you come in for work for extra hours? No, I have an appointment. You don't have to clarify for anyone what kind of appointment it is. You already have an appointment, and it's an appointment with yourself to take rest and practice self-care. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. If you cannot wait for a new video come out, feel free to check out either of these videos that I already have on my channel if those intrigue you. And with all of that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye everyone!